My son, Logan, stood before me, his eyes burning with greed as he demanded my inheritance, my life and my work. I refused, thinking it was over, but a week later, he invited me to a family meeting for reconciliation. I arrived to find lawyers waiting with a ready-made will. They put the papers in front of me, but I just smiled. "It's funny," I said. "I brought a guest too." Their faces turned pale as the door opened. This betrayal was their biggest mistake. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The dining room smelled of cold coffee and rain. Wooden family photos lined the walls, their frames glinting under the dim glow of the chandelier. My son, Logan, paced like a caged animal, his loafers clicking against the hardwood. His wife, Emma, sat across from her. Manicured nails tapped the table, each click like a needle in my spine. The old clock on the wall ticked louder than it should have, slicing through the silence between Logan's shouts. "You're sitting on my future, Dad." Logan's voice cracked, his face turning red. "You think you can just hold on to everything forever?" I gripped the edge of my glass, the whiskey inside untouched. My pulse hammered, but I kept my voice low. "This is my home, Logan. My rules." Emma leaned forward, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Let's be reasonable, Jack. You're not eternal." She slid a stack of papers across the table, an old will, its edges worn. Her nails flashed under the light, sharp as her words. "You're holding them back, their dreams, their life, as if my decades of hard work building a network of car dealerships from nothing meant less than their whims." I stared at the papers but didn't touch them. Logan stopped packing, his eyes burning with something uglier than anger, greed, maybe, or desperation. "You always made me live in your shadow," he spat. "Those loans you gave me were pocket change compared to what you're hoarding." The words stung. I'd paid for his failed startups, his cars, his holidays, thinking it was love. My mistake. The clock ticked again, relentlessly. A photo of my late wife, Margaret, watched from the wall. Her smile was frozen in time. I wondered what she would have said. "Now enough." My voice cut through the room, sharper than I intended. I stood, my chair scraping the floor. "Get out, both of you." Logan froze, his mouth hanging open. Emma's smile vanished, her eyes narrowing. She grabbed the papers, clutching them like a weapon, and stood. "This isn't over, Jack." Her voice was like ice. Logan stormed towards the door, brushing against a photo frame as he went. It tilted, but didn't fall. The front door slammed, the sound echoing like a gunshot. I sank back into my chair. The room was too quiet now. Rain tapped the windows, a steady drum. The will sat on the table, its presence mocking me. I reached for it, my fingers brushing the paper, but stopped. My chest tightened, a mix of shock and something hotter, anger, maybe, or resolve. "You'll regret this," I whispered, not sure who I was talking to. The clock ticked on, indifferent. I stood, my legs feeling heavier than they should have, and walked towards my study. The key to my desk drawer felt cold in my pocket. Whatever was coming, I'd be ready. The study smelled of leather and old books, a sanctuary from the storm outside. Rain lashed the windows, blurring the world beyond. I sat at my desk, the lamp casting a weak circle of light over a pile of letters and photos. The clock on the shelf ticked, its rhythm pulling me back to moments I'd rather forget. My fingers trembled as I opened a drawer, revealing a stack of papers tied with a faded ribbon. Margaret's letters. Her handwriting, all loops and grace, stared up at me. I untied the ribbon, my throat tightened. One letter, dated years ago, caught my eye. "You're always so strong, Jack," she'd written. "But don't forget to live for yourself." I clenched the paper, feeling guilty. I'd lived for her, for Logan, for everyone but myself. Now look where it got me. My mind drifted to Logan's first car, a sleek convertible that I bought when he dropped out of college. He'd grinned then. He called me his hero. I beamed, thinking it was enough. Later, I'd funded his startups, each one crashing harder than the last. I told myself it was fine, that he'd find his way. Margaret had warned me, her voice soft in the hospital bed. He needs to stand on his own, Jack. I hadn't listened. Not then. The clock ticked louder, grounding me. I set the letter down and dug deeper into the drawer. A contract surfaced, its edges yellowed. It was a loan I'd given Logan 3 years ago, 6 figures with no repayment. He'd called it an investment, but it was a lifeline. He'd squandered it. The numbers stared back at me, a map of my blindness. I leaned back, the chair creaking. The study felt smaller now, the walls closing in. A photo of Margaret sat on the desk, her eyes kind yet piercing. I touched the frame, my fingers lingering. She died holding my hand, her breath shallow. Her last words had been about protecting our family. I'd failed her there too. Enough. I grabbed my phone and dialed Ron, an old friend who'd seen me through worse. It rang twice before he answered, his voice warm yet cautious. "Jack, you okay? I need your take on something," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "It's serious. Name the time and place." There was no hesitation. That was Ron. "Tomorrow, that steakhouse downtown, noon. I'll be there." He paused. "You sure you're all right?" I didn't answer, just ended the call. The letter from Margaret lay open, her words a quiet rebuke. I folded it carefully and slipped it into my pocket. The rain hadn't let up, and neither would I. I stood, my shadow long against the bookshelves, and left the study. By the time I reached the front door, my coat was on, the letter awaiting me against my chest. The car engine roared to life, and I drove into the storm, the road ahead as unclear as my next move. Rain pounded the streets of downtown Chicago, turning the pavements into rivers. I parked outside the steakhouse, the neon sign flickering through the downpour. My fingers brushed the letter in my pocket, Margaret's words a tether to my resolve. The restaurant's door creaked as I stepped inside, the smell of grilled meat and coffee hitting me. Ron sat at a corner table, his gray hair catching the light. He waved me over, his smile fading when he saw my face. "Rough night?" he asked, pushing a mug of coffee towards me. "Rough life." I sat, my coat dripping onto the floor, the letter pressed against my ribs, a quiet reminder. Logan and Emma had come by yesterday. They wanted everything now. Ron's eyes narrowed. "They've got nerve. What did you do?" "Tell them to get out." I sipped the coffee, bitter and hot, "but they're not done. I can feel it." The restaurant hummed with the clinking of plates, low voices, and the hiss of rain outside. I glanced around, my neck prickled. A man in a dark coat sat near the bar, his cap low, his eyes flicking towards us before darting away. I shook it off, focusing on Ron. He leaned forward, his voice, "They might try to contest the will," he said. "Logan's impulsive, but Emma, she's sharp, dangerous." I nodded, my jaw tight. I knew that, which is why I needed to move fast and protect the assets first. Ron said to get a lawyer, a good one, someone who will bury them in paperwork. I pulled out a notebook. I jotted down his words. "Check will lock down accounts." My pen moved fast, each stroke a step towards control. The door creaked again, another customer stepping in. Rain pooled at their feet. My eyes flicked to the man in the cap. He hadn't touched his drink. "You're not just fighting for money," Ron said, his voice softer now. "They underestimated you, Jim." "Prove them wrong." I met his gaze, feeling a spark catch in my chest. "I will." I grabbed my phone and dialed my lawyer's office, keeping my voice low. "It's Jack Carson. I need an appointment tomorrow if you can." The receptionist promised to call back. I hung up, my pulse steady for the first time in days. Ron clapped me on the shoulder. "That's the Jack I know," he said. I managed a half smile, but my eyes drifted to the bar. The man in the cap was gone, his glass empty. A chill ran through me. I stood up, tossed some cash on the table, and told Ron, "I'll call you soon," already moving towards the door. Outside, the rain was merciless, soaking my coat. I scanned the street, my breath catching as a shadow moved in the alley across the road. too quickly for me to identify. My car keys bit into my palm as I unlocked the door and slid inside. "You don't know who you're dealing with," I muttered, the words lost in the roar of the engine. The road stretched ahead, slick and dark, but I was ready for whatever came next. The rain hadn't stopped, a gray curtain over Chicago's skyline. As I pulled up to the detective's office, I saw that the building was a squat brick relic, its windows streaked with grime. I clutched a folder of documents, old contracts and loan agreements, my knuckles white. From the alley yesterday still lingered in my mind, a nagging itch I couldn't scratch. I pushed through the door, the bell jangling like a warning. Inside, the air smelled of stale cigarettes and damp paper. Frank, the private detective, sat behind a cluttered desk, his tie loose, a coffee mug balanced on a stack of files. He looked up, his eyes sharp despite the bags beneath them. "Crawford, you're early." "Couldn't sleep," I said, dropping into a creaky chair. The folder hit the desk with a thud. "What have you got?" Frank slid a manila envelope towards me, its edges taped shut. "Your son's in deep. 50 grand in debt. Cars, credit cards, a bad bet on some tech startup. Emma's cleaner, but not by much." He leaned back, smirking. "She's obsessed with looking like old money. Spends a fortune to keep up." I tore open the envelope. My pulse, I quickly scanned the bank statements, receipts, and a photo of Logan posing with an expensive watch he couldn't afford. Then, tucked into Logan's old belongings, I found a photocopied letter in Emma's tight script. "Jack clings to his money like a dying man to air. He's not eternal and will take what's ours." My stomach churned, but a cold smile tugged at my lips. Frank said, "Sloppy, both of them." I traced the words, Emma's venom seeping through the page. The office's fluorescent light buzzed, casting shadows over the desk. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a reminder of time slipping away. I'd built my life for them, sacrificed dreams, nights, years, and this was their thanks. My fingers tightened on the letter, crumpling its edge. "Anything else?" I asked, my voice despite the fire in my chest. Frank shrugged. "Logan's desperation and Emma's pride are her leash." "Use that," he tapped the envelope. "You've got enough to rattle them." I nodded, slipping the papers into my folder. The weight of it grounded me, each document a brick in the wall I was building. "Keep digging," I said, standing up. "I want everything back." Home was too quiet, the studies dark. Swallowing the light, I spread the papers across my desk. The clock ticked louder now, like a heartbeat. Emma's letter lay open, her words a taunt. I grabbed a pen, jotting notes. Logan, debts, Emma, pride. My mind raced, piecing together a plan, though its shape was still vague. The documents were my first weapon, sharp and ready. I leaned back, the chair groaned. Margaret's photo watched from the desk, her eyes soft but unyielding. I'd been weak for too long, blinded by love for a son who had traded me for cash. No more. I grabbed my phone and typed a message to Ron. "It's starting." My thumb hovered over the send button, then pressed down. A creak echoed from downstairs, sharp against the drone of the rain. My heart lurched. The front door was locked. I checked. I stood, the folder still in hand, and moved towards the hall. The house felt alive, its shadows shifting. Someone was here, or I was losing my mind. Either way, I wasn't backing down. The cafe in Neepville buzzed with morning chatter, the scent of espresso cutting through the damp air. I sat in a corner booth, my laptop open, the screen's glow reflecting in my coffee. My watch ticked softly, a reminder that time bent to my will. The email was ready, an anonymous tip to Logan's creditors listing his car, his condo, and every other asset he'd flaunted. My finger lingered over the send key, then pressed done. I leaned back, the vinyl seat creaking. Outside, rain streaked the windows, blurring the world. The documents from Frank sat in my bag, their way to quiet victory. Logan and Emma thought they could bully me, but I'd learned their game now. I'd play mine. An hour later, I parked across from Logan's house. The street was lined with manicured lawns and pretense. Their place had white shutters and false charm, and the grass was patchy from neglect. I kept the engine off, my breath fogging the window. My phone buzzed, Ron checking in, but I ignored it, my eyes locked on their front door. It didn't take long. Logan burst out, phone pressed to his ear. His voice carried through the open window. "I'll pay, just give me time." His face was slick with sweat. His tie asked, "You asked me to handle this, Emma." Her heels clicked as she stormed back in. Her voice was sharp as a blade. "You idiot. You said this was handled." A glass shattered inside. The sound was crisp against the rain. Emma spun, her hair whipping as she stormed back in. Logan clutched his phone, pleading, "I need a week, that's all." The door slammed, the echo like a crack in their armor. I smiled, my first real smile in days. This was just the start. I scribbled notes in my book. Logan panicking, Emma cracking. Their unity was a lie, and I drove the wedge deeper. My watch ticked steadily, grounding me. Margaret used to say, "Time reveals truth." She was right. I started the car, the engine's hum blending with the rain, and drove back to Neepville. At home, the mailbox was stuffed with bills, junk mail, and one crisp envelope, its edges sharp. I tore it open. The paper was cool against my fingers. A note from Logan, handwritten. Formal family meeting. "Let's reconcile. Tomorrow 7:00 p.m. at our place." The clock in the hall ticked, mocking the word reconcile. I set the letter on the kitchen counter. Its words were a trap that I would walk into willingly. I poured myself a whiskey. The glass was heavy in my hand. The house was quiet, the rain a distant murmur. I had stirred the hornet's nest, and they were buzzing. Good, I slipped the letter into my pocket and headed to the garage. The car keys were cold against my palm. Tomorrow I would face them, but tonight I needed to think. The engine roared, and I drove into the wet dusk. The road ahead was sharp with possibility. The law firm's conference room smelled of ink and polished wood, and its windows framed Chicago's rain-licked towers. I sat at the table, my hands folded, the folder of documents tucked under my arm. The door creaked open, and Logan's lawyer strode in. He was a wiry man with a smirk that begged to be wiped off. He dropped a stack of papers with a sharp sound, like a gauntlet thrown. "Mr. Crawford, your son has concerns about your capacity to manage your estate," he began, his voice oily. He leaned forward, his eyes glinting. "Your aging mistakes happen," he said. I clenched my jaw, my fingers digging into the folder. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a pulse of restraint. My mind was sharper than my client's finances. I said, my voice low. The lawyer's smirk faltered, but he pressed on, rattling off accusations of mismanagement and neglect, all lies spun to steal what I'd built. The door creaked open again, and a woman entered, her heels clicking with purpose. Elise Martin, my lawyer, carried herself like a storm held in check. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled back, her eyes sharp, as she set her briefcase down. "Gentlemen, your claims are as thin as this paper," she said, her voice cool. She slid a document across the table, her watch glinting under the lights. The lawyer scoffed, but Elise didn't flinch. "You cite mismanagement, yet Mr. Crawford's accounts are impeccable. Care to explain this?" She tapped a spreadsheet, her nail clicking. "Or shall we discuss your client's debts instead?" I exhaled, feeling a knot loosen in my chest. The lawyer stammered, flipping through his notes, his confidence crumbling. Elise leaned back, her smile faint but lethal. The clock ticked on, marking her rhythm, not his. I caught her eye, and a silent thanks passed between us. After the meeting, we lingered in the hall, the air cooler. The city hummed in the distance. "They're desperate," Ella said, her tone lighter now. "I've seen worse opponents, Jack. We'll crush them." I chuckled, the sound foreign. "You're enjoying this a little." She grinned, a spark in her eyes. "Justice has a nice ring to it." We walked to her office, a small space lined with books and framed degrees. She pulled a file, her fingers quick. "Their case is weak, but they're not done. Logan's impulsive, Emma's calculating. Watch your back." I nodded. The folder was heavy in my hands. I've got my eyes open. She paused, her pen hovering over a page. "Wait this." She circled a line, her brow furrowing. Then she looked up, a glint in her eye. "This changes everything, everything." "What is it?" I leaned forward, my pulse spiking. She slid the document towards me, her voice low. "A loophole, trust me, Jack, they won't see this coming." I took the file, it waiting like a promise. The rain had eased, sunlight breaking through the clouds. I left the firm, the city alive around me, and slid into my car. The engine purred, the road calling. Whatever Eli's had found, it was my next move, and I was ready to play it. Rain drummed the roof of my Neepville house. The steady pulse matched the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. I stood in the living room, the air heavy with the scent of damp wood and old memories. Family photos lined the mantelpiece. Margaret smiled, a quiet rebuke. The doorbell chimed, sharp and unwelcome. I smoothed my shirt, steadied my breath, and opened the door. Emma stood there, her coat glistening, her smile as polished as her lies. "Jack," she said, her voice syrupy, "I came to apologize. We got carried away." Her eyes flicked past me, scanning the room like a thief casing a vault. I nodded, gesturing her inside. My pulse quickened, but I kept my face calm. She followed, her heels clicking on the hardwood, each step a calculated note in her performance. I poured water into the kettle, the hiss of the burner filling the silence. The clock ticked on, relentless. Emma sat, crossing her legs, her purse perched like a shield. "We didn't mean to hurt you," she leaned forward, Logan stressed. "You know how he gets." Her fingers brushed a lock of hair, a practiced move, but her cold, calculating eyes betrayed her. I'd seen that look before in boardrooms and deals gone sour. I echoed, stressed, setting a cup before her. My hand brushed a document on the table, a transfer of assets to a charity fund, signed that morning with Ella's guidance. Emma's gaze darted to it, her lips tightening for a split second. "Got you," I thought. "We all make mistakes," I said, my voice soft, inviting her to dig deeper. She sipped the tea, her nails clicking against the cup. "You've always been so generous," she said, her tone dipping into flattery. "Maybe we can start over for the family." The word hung in the air, hollow. I remembered her letter, her venom scrolled in ink. "He's not eternal." My jaw clenched, but I smiled. "Family," I said, leaning back. "That's worth considering." My phone buzzed in my pocket, a text from Eli's, all set. I ignored it, watching Emma. She prattled on, reminiscing about Logan's wedding, her voice a calculated lullaby. But she slipped, calling my estate our future. Her eyes widened, catching the mistake, but I let it pass. My smile was unwavering. I stood, gathering the cups. "Let me walk you out," I said. She hesitated, then followed, her purse clutched tight. At the door she paused, glancing back at the document on the table. "Think about what I said," I urged. She urged, her voice too sweet. I nodded, closing the door behind her. Through the window, I watched her linger by her car, her phone pressed to her ear. Her whispers were sharp against the rain. She thought she was hidden, but the glass betrayed her. My chest tightened with anger, triumph, and caution. I pulled out my phone and dialed Eli's. She took the bait. My voice was low. The clock ticked, marking the moment I turned towards the study. The plan sharpened in my mind, each step a brick in the trap I was building. The air was crisp, the rain finally gone, leaving Neighborville Street slick and gleaming. I parked a block from Logan's house, the engine off. My watch ticked softly in the quiet of the neighborhood. Buzzing with the morning routine, kids on bikes, a jogger with earbuds, but my eyes were locked on Logan's driveway. His prized convertible sat there, cherry red, a symbol of his borrowed swagger. Not for long. A tow truck rumbled up, its yellow lights flashing. Two men in coveralls stepped out, clipboards in hand. Logan's front door flew open, and he stumbled. His shirt was untucked, and his face was a mask of panic. "You can't take it," he shouted, waving his phone. "This is a mistake." The taller man shrugged, hooking the car to the tow truck. "Court order, buddy," he said. "Pay your debts." Neighbors peeked from their windows. A woman across the street was filming with her phone. Logan's voice cracked with pleading. "Now give me a week, I'll fix this." The door slammed again and Emma stormed out, her face twisted. "You're pathetic," she hissed, her voice carrying. "You said you had this handled." Logan grabbed her arm, but she yanked free, her heels scraping the pavement. "You're embarrassing us," she spat, storming back inside. The door's thud echoed, a crack in their facade. I jotted a note in my book. Logan breaking, Emma furious. My pen moved fast, the ink a quiet victory. The tow truck pulled away, Logan's car dangling like a trophy. He sank to the curb, his head in his hands. The neighbors' whispers were a chorus of his shame. I started my car, the engine's hum blending with my pulse. The clock on the dashboard ticked steadily, providing grounding. I'd lit the fuse and their world was burning. By noon, I was in Eli's office. The air was sharp with coffee and paper. She leaned over her desk, her glasses perched low, a stack of documents between us. "They're unraveling," she said, her voice calm but edged with excitement. "Logan's creditors are circling, Emma's losing her grip." I nodded, my fingers tracing the edge of a file. "I saw it myself. He's a mess, she's worse. The meeting is tomorrow. They'll push hard, we'll push harder." Her smile was a blade, and I trusted its edge. We reviewed the plan, her pen marking key points, each stroke a step towards justice. I left her office, the city alive around me. I pulled out my phone. The number was already queued. "It's time," I said when the call connected. "Be ready." The voice on the other end was steady, a promise sealed. I hung up. The folder under my arm was heavy with purpose. The car door clicked shut, and I drove towards home. The meeting loomed like a storm on the horizon. The cafe in downtown Chicago hummed with clinking cups and murmured deals. The scent of colognes mingled with espresso. I sat by the window. My tablet glowed with social media posts, each one a dagger in Emma's carefully curated world. Emma Crawford had lied about her charity work, one post read with screenshots of her emails. Frank's find had been leaked by Eli's contacts. Comments piled up, vicious and gleeful. I sipped my coffee, its bitterness a perfect match for the moment. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, counting down Emma's reign. I scrolled, my thumb deliberate. Another post. Is Emma Crawford's lifestyle funded? The evidence was thin, but damning enough to sting her pride and her obsession with status. I pictured her now, in their pretentious house, her face crumpling as her facade shattered. My watch ticked, a quiet echo of control. Across town, Emma sat in her living room, the curtains drawn, magazines scattered like fallen soldiers. Her phone glowed, the screen flooded with notifications. She swiped, her fingers trembling, mascara streaking her cheeks. "How did they find this?" she whispered, her voice breaking. She hurled the phone at the couch, its thud swallowed by the silence. Logan slouched in a chair, his eyes dull. "Fix it," she snapped. "Do something." He didn't move. His voice was flat. "What's the point? You're the one who pushed." Emma's face twisted. Her nails dug into her palms. "This is your fault," she screamed, storming to the window. She grabbed her phone, dialing her lawyer. Her voice was low and venomous. "Find out who did this now." I didn't need to see her to know the chaos. The posts told the story, each one like a pebble in an avalanche. I set the tablet down. The cafe was warm, a stark contrast to the cold satisfaction in my chest. My phone buzzed. "Eli's, she's spiraling," she said when I answered. "The leak worked. She's weaker than we thought." "Good," I said, my voice steady. "What's our move?" "Keep the pressure on," Eli's replied. "The meeting's tomorrow. She'll come out swinging, but we're ready." Her confidence was a lifeline, and I clung to it. We hung up and I leaned back. The coffee was cooling in my hand. The clock ticked, its rhythm a promise of what was to come. The cafe door chimed and a courier stepped in, a slim folder in hand. Jack Carson, he asked. I nodded, taking the delivery. The paper was crisp, the contents heavy, documents for the meeting prepared by Eli's. Each page was a weapon. I opened the folder, my eyes scanning the first line, a slow smile spreading. The cafe's noise faded, the world narrowing to the plan in my hands. I stood, the folder under my arm, and pushed through the door. The city's pulse matched mine as I headed to the car, to the conference. Room in downtown Chicago gleamed with polished wood and glass, its air sharp with the scent of ink and ambition. I stepped inside, my folder of documents a reassuring weight under my arm. The clock on the wall ticked, each second a drumbeat of anticipation. Logan and Emma sat across the table, flanked by their lawyers. Their faces were a mix of smugness and strain. Papers were spread before them was a new will, its crisp edges waiting for my signature. I took my seat, my pulse steady and my smile faint. Mr. Crawford, the lead lawyer, began. His voice was smooth as oil. This document ensures your family's future. Sign it and we're done. He slid the will towards me, his pen glinting like a blade. Emma's eyes flicked to mine, her lips tight, while Logan shifted, drumming his fingers. The room held its breath, the clock ticking louder. Funny, I thought, my voice calm. I brought a guest. The lawyers frowned, exchanging glances. Emma's hand froze on her purse. Logan's drumming stopped. The door creaked open and a man in a gray suit entered, his briefcase heavy, his expression carved from stone. Agent Daniel Harper, FBI, he said. We have evidence of document forgery tied to Logan and Emma Crawford. He dropped a stack of papers on the table, the thud echoing like a gavel. Forged signatures, altered contracts. Frank's digging, Eli's strategy, my plan. Emma gasped. Her face drained of color. Logan's chair scraped as he leaned back, his eyes wide. This is a mistake, he stammered, his voice cracking. The lawyers scrambled, flipping through the evidence, their confidence crumbling. Harper's gaze was unrelenting. These are felonies, you'll answer for them. I leaned back, the folder untouched before me. The clock ticked, marking their defeat. Emma's nails dug into her purse, her composure was shattered. Logan's hands shook, his bravado was gone. Dad, he croaked, I didn't mean it. I met his eyes, my voice was cold. You meant every word. The room felt smaller. The air was thick with their panic. The lawyers whispered frantically, but Harper's presence silenced them. I stood, the folder in hand, and nodded to Harper. Thank you, Agent. Logan lurched forward, his voice desperate. Dad, please give me a chance. Emma clutched the table, silent, her eyes burning with fear and rage. I paused at the door, the cool handle under my palm. Their pleas followed me, but I didn't look back. The door clicked shut, the sound final. I walked to my car, the city's hum a distant pulse. The folder was a trophy of justice. The road home stretched ahead, and I drove, my mind already turning to what came next. The living room glowed with soft lamplight, the scent of roasted chicken lingering from dinner. The grandfather clock ticked gently, a steady rhythm against the quiet. I stood by the window, my reflection faint in the glass, when the doorbell rang sharply and insistently. I knew who it was before I opened the door. Logan and Emma stood on the porch, their faces haggard, their clothes rumpled. The weight of their defeat hung like a shadow. Dad, we're sorry we messed up, Logan said, his voice breaking. He stepped forward, his hands trembling. Emma nodded, her eyes red, her usual poise gone. We lost everything, she whispered. Please, Jack. I crossed my arms, the cool doorframe against my shoulder. You chose greed, I said, my voice even. You chose to betray me. The words landed like stones, and Logan flinched, his knees buckling. He sank to the porch, his head in his hands. You're my father, he choked. Give us a chance. Emma's gaze darted to mine, pleading, but I saw the calculation beneath her tears. I shook my head. You made your path, walk it. I stepped back. The clocks ticked louder now, a reminder of time's judgment. Logan's sobs echoed, but I closed the door. The click final. In the study, I sat at my desk with a stack of documents before me, transfers to a children's charity signed that morning with Eli's help. My pen moved steadily, each signature a release from the past. Margaret's photo watched from the shelf, her smile warm and approving. I'd kept enough to live comfortably, but the rest would build futures for others, not fuel Logan's folly. The doorbell rang again, softer this time. Eli stood there, her coat dusted with evening mist, a bottle of wine in hand. "I thought you could use some company," she said, her grin easing the ache in my chest. We ate in the dining room. The clink of glass was a quiet celebration. "You did the right thing," she said, her eyes steady. "They'll survive, you'll thrive." I chuckled, the sound lighter than I'd expected. "Thanks to you," I said. We talked late. Her laughter was a balm, her strength a mirror to my own. The clock chimed midnight. She left, her headlights fading into the night. I stepped onto the porch, the air cool, the sunset painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The weight of years, love, loss, and betrayal lifted, leaving only peace. I turned back inside to the study, where a blank sheet of paper waited on the desk, its promise vast. I picked up my pen, the clock ticking softly. Urging me forward, I began to write. The charity office in Chicago buzzed with purpose, its walls lined with children's drawings and thank you notes. I sat at a table with volunteers, the scent of fresh paper and coffee grounding me. A young woman across from me beamed, holding up a plan for a new after-school program. "Your donations are changing lives," she said, Crawford, her voice bright. I nodded, warmth spreading in my chest. The office door creaked open and a volunteer stepped in. For a moment, I heard the echo of older doors, ones I'd closed for good. My phone buzzed with a news alert. Logan and Emma Crawford face fraud charges. I pictured them in a courtroom, their faces pale, their hands clasped tight, the judge's voice cold and final. Fines, maybe jail. I felt no anger, only a quiet resolve. They'd built their ruin brick by brick. I swiped the alert away. The volunteers' chatter pulled me back. Later, I walked with Eli's along Lake Michigan. The water glinted under the spring sun. Her scarf fluttered. Her laughter was sharp as she recounted a case she'd won. "You're tougher than you look, Jim," she nudged my arm. "Always were." "Learn from the best," I replied, her grin infectious. We stopped at a bench, the city's skyline sharp against the sky. I pulled Margaret's photo from my wallet, its edges worn. "She'd be proud," I said, my voice soft. Back home, the study was quiet, the clock ticking a gentle pulse. I sat at my desk. A blank sheet lay before me, and my pen, heavy with purpose, began to write slowly, each word a thread in the legacy I wanted to leave. Not wealth, but truth. "Justice is strength," I wrote, "and you must hold it close, for it will carry you." The letter was for those who would come after, a guide through the shadows of greed. Margaret's photo watched me, her eyes kind and urging. I sealed the letter, its weight a promise kept. The trial's outcome reached me later, guilty verdicts, their lives unraveling. I set the phone down, the news a distant ripple. The porch called, the night sky vast, stars pricking the dark. I stepped outside, the air cool, the world still.